countries and all. Yeah, today we're on Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Australia. And yeah, here we go with first, which is Egypt. And yeah, here we go. As Egypt is very fascinating. Starting off with history and all that, as by 5000 BC the people of Egypt had begun farming. And they also wove linen and made pottery, and later they learned to use bronze. And after around 3200 BC, the Egyptians began inventing writing and all. And the first Egyptian in history was King Menes. He was also known as Narmer. He lived shortly before 3100 BC. And at the time Egypt was divided into an upper or northern or lower Egypt and southern or upper Egypt, and about 3118 Menes united two, and he made Memphis his capital. And in ancient Egypt was more highly organised society. And the country was divided into 42 areas called nomes, and each one was governed by the march. As farmers paid part of their crops in taxes. And yeah, the first period of Egyptian history ended in what is known as the Old Kingdom, ended in 2181 BC. And during that time the pharaohs built pyramids, and the first pyramids was the Step Pyramid, was built by Zoser, spelled Z-O-S-E-R, around 2665 BC. And it was built by the following pharaohs: Neferu and Khufu. However, the central authority in Egypt was eventually weakened, and around 1281 BC, Egypt was split into two parts again, and also wars began between the rival areas. And this period of disorder was called the First Intermediate Period, and lasted till 255 BC, until Mentuhotep II succeeded in reuniting Egypt and founded the Middle Kingdom. And the Middle Kingdom lasted until 1650 BC, and was kind of like a great period of awesome literature for Egypt, and the pharaohs carried out successful military campaigns, and more pyramids were built. And it was also at the time people from what is now Israel settled in Egypt, which was essentially today's Jewish population now. But the Middle Kingdom was followed by a second intermediate period around 650, and Palestinian people called the Hyksos seized power in northern Egypt, and they ruled from a city called Avaris. But native Egyptians continued to rule southern Egypt, and in 1550 BC they drove out the Hyksos and reunited Egypt, and it began the New Kingdom, which lasted from 1550 to 1070 BC. And during that era, Egypt was rich and powerful again, and controlled what is now Nubia, which was a land to the south, and invaded Palestine and Syria. While great temples were built in like Thebes, and the pharaohs were buried in the Valley of the Kings. This is like a number of valley pharaohs that were built there, including Ramses the Great, or Ramses II. And then about 1364 BC, Akhenaten became pharaoh. He worshipped only the sun god called Aten, but his son Tutankhamun worshipped the old gods. And some people say that the only reason we know about Tutankhamun as such was because of Howard Carter's discovery of his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, which remained untouched till they found it in 1922. And the New Kingdom prospered till 1070, and it gave way to another period of disunity, and from this point Egypt declined, never quite recovered to the former glory that it once saw. And during the third intermediate period, Egypt split into two halves, and north and south, and however in 747 BC the kings from Nubia, the country south of Egypt, conquered Egypt and restored it to unity. But in 525 BC the Persians conquered what is now Egypt, and it was conquered again in 332 BC by Alexander the Great. Upon Alexander's death, his empire split into parts, and the Greek general called Ptolemy eventually took Egypt. And for about 300 years, his Greek descendants ruled over Egypt, but until 30 BC, where it became a province of the Roman Empire, and where it ceased to be an independent kingdom for some time. But the real end to ancient Egypt came with Christianity, as it reached Alexandria by 70 AD, and spread south by 180 AD, as Christianity meant the end of the old religion, and so the end of ancient Egyptian culture. And lastly, a woman called... And yeah, as there's been after many pharaohs and all, ancient Egypt was no more. And in the 4th century AD, as it doesn't stop with ancient Egypt, and in the 4th century AD, the Roman Empire split into two, and Egypt was part of the eastern half, known as the Byzantine Empire, but by the 7th century the Arabs had conquered it, as the Arabs invaded Egypt in 639, and by 642 all of Egypt was in their hands. It became part of the Islamic Empire and was ruled from Baghdad. However, in 868 the administrator called Ahmed ibn Tulun declared Egypt independent, but independence didn't exactly last long, as his son and successor was assassinated and the rule from Baghdad was reimposed. But in 969, Egypt was conquered by the Fatimids of Tunisia, as the Fatimids ruled Egypt until 1171, and they built Cairo, which became their capital. But in 1171, the Syrian named Salah ad-Din, known in the west as Saladin, became ruler of Egypt, and he founded a dynasty called the Ayyubids, who ruled Egypt for a grand total of 80 years. And then in 1250 a man named Baybars seized power in Egypt, and he and his successors were called the Mamluks, as they ruled Egypt until 1517. And during this period Egypt was a rich and powerful nation. But in 1517 Egypt was conquered by the Ottoman Turks, and under the Ottomans Egypt was allowed some autonomy, as long as Egypt paid their taxes to Ottomans, were content to let the Egyptians administer themselves. Nonetheless, in the 17th and 18th centuries, the centuries were ones of economic decline in Egypt, and in 1719 the country suffered a devastating outbreak of a plague. And in later that century, in 1798, a French army under a man called Napoleon landed in Egypt, as Napoleon hoped that if he conquered Egypt, British links with India would be disrupted. As Napoleon defeated the Egyptians on the land, and the Battle of the Pyramids was he was defeated at sea by the British Navy. So Napoleon had abandoned his army and had left Egypt. And afterwards, the British and Ottoman forces defeated the French army and forced them to surrender. However, the French expedition led a renewed interest in ancient Egypt in Europe. And after the French left, there was a power struggle in Egypt, but it was eventually won by an Albanian mercenary led by Muhammad Ali, who became the viceroy of Egypt. The nominee was under the control of Ottoman Sultan, but in practice he was more or less independent, as Ali tried to modernise Egypt, as he built factories and shipyards. However, he died in 1849. And in 1859, work began on what was the Suez Canal, as it was built by a French engineer called Ferdinand de Lesseps, who lived from 1805 to 94. As Khedive Ismail from 1863 to 79 carried on the policy of modernising Egypt and establishing a postal service, and he started building railways. In 1869, the Suez Canal was completed. However, he had to borrow from European lenders at high rates, and interest to fund modernisation, and eventually to avoid bankruptcy, Ismail was forced to sell his shares of the Suez Canal to the British in 1875, and followed by his son Tawfik in 1879. And in 1882, there was an uprising in Egypt, and worried about the investments of the Suez Canal, the British sent troops to occupy Egypt, as they kept Khedive as a puppet ruler. Naturally, the Egyptians resented becoming a British colony, and in 1919, anti-British riots swept through Egypt, and in 1922, Britain recognised Egypt as an independent state. And yet the British still control the Egyptian communication system, its legal system, and foreign policy, as the British made a successor of Khedive called Fuad King of Egypt, but he had only limited power, and in 1935 he was followed by his son Farouk, and then in 1942 the Germans invaded Egypt, but we got the best of them at the Battle of El Alamein. And however, following anti-British riots, the last British troops were withdrawn from Egypt in 1947. In 1948, Egypt was defeated by a war with Israel, as Farouk was blamed for the disaster, and in 1952 a group of army officers called Free Officers staged a coup and forced Farouk to abdicate, and their leader, General Naguib, became leader of Egypt, but in 1954 he was replaced by Gamal Abdel Nasser, and in 1956 Nasser nationalised the Suez Canal as Britain, France and Israel formed an alliance, and in October 1956 Israel invaded the Sinai Peninsula, and the British and French sent troops to Port Said, but American pressure forced them to withdraw, as Nasser introduced a socialist regime, moved Egypt closer to the Soviet Union, and under him education and healthcare improved, but was a repressive regime and the economy was stagnated. And he was replaced by Anwar Sadat, who reversed the discredited socialist policies and encouraged foreign investment. As a result, Egyptian economy boomed, although Egypt fought another unsuccessful war with Israel in 1973, and in 1978 Sadat made peace with Israel by Camp David Agreement. However, he was assassinated by extremists in 1981 and was replaced by Hosni Mubarak. And today, Egypt has a problem of a rapidly rising population and a lack of farming land. But the tourist industry has seen somewhat of a boom until quite recently, with Syria not so far away. And Egypt has a great potential for exporting like natural gas and all. And after 2011 demonstrations in Egypt, Hosni Mubarak was forced to resign, and a new chapter in the history of Egypt began, as Egypt gained a new constitution in 2014, and today the population of Egypt stands somewhere around 97 million, or something like that. And moving on to legends, as we have kind of seen a lot of ancient Egypt on screen before, like the Prince of Egypt and like Cleopatra and all, and the movie trilogy, which has kind of had another film come out of it within the last year or two, with Tom Cruise in it, as well as an episode of Futurama and Ancient Aliens. Yeah. There are a lot more, as there's quite a lot to Egypt, especially ancient Egypt and all. Yeah. Let's say we go with a few. Cleopatra is one of the more famous female pharaohs, but Queen Hatshepsut reign as pharaoh ran from 1479 to 1458 BC, preceding her by Cleopatra by 14 centuries and all that. She came to power when her husband and half-brother, Thutmose II, died, and she ruled first as regent to her baby stepson, Thutmose I, before taking full power, as Hatshepsut often had herself depicted as a man in official iconography, to quell gossip about the legitimacy of her position, as she was the most powerful person in Egypt, but her very authority was vulnerable to attack because she was a woman. In fact, her reign was eventually deemed extremely successful, and she focused on economic prosperity and stability, rather than conquering foreign lands, and her existence was only discovered after the fact because her stepson, who succeeded her, destroyed evidence of her reign, as it was believed to be a political move, so that his time in power as well as would not be questioned in the future or done in a fit of rage, depending on which history book you read. Yeah. Women can rule successfully. Well, then there's kind of like the gods of like the Middle Kingdom, as the ancient gods and goddesses has been like great fodder for dramatic adventure and all. Like from Senna to warrior princess to the upcoming gods of Egypt, as ancient Egyptians believed that the gods were directly involved in the lives of the Egyptians. As it kind of starts with a book of the Heavenly Cow, which describes how humanity rebelled against God, forcing them to reorganize the heavenly world. And and to protect the Egyptian people, the sun god Ra tricks an angry Hathor into thinking that the world was covered in blood by mixing alcohol and with a red dye, which Hathor drank up to in her literal bloodlust, and how she would slash. And then there's also Osiris, where anyone regardless of wealth and power could enter the realm and would be given his or her land if judged worthy on the day of judgment, where an individual's actions was weighed up. And this upset the rich who would build big tombs and all to guarantee happiness in the afterlife. And yeah. And there's a Nehemes Bastet, which was only discovered like a couple of years back in the Valley of Kings, as Nemes Bastet. Like, kind of sounds like an incredible, like unique and all that. As a discovery makes for an imperfect framing device, as archaeologists specifically had it to protect her during the Egyptian Revolution in 2011, as before they were able to return a year later. As she herself lived during Egypt's called an unsettling time, and during the first intermediate period, and past the time of the ancient Egypt's peak, as she was a priestess singer who could perform for religious festivals and ceremonies to worship Amun, the king of the gods. And in terms of what her singing sounded like, historians can debate and all that. And since the emphasis would have been on percussion, it might have been close to rap. It'll make up a few years to fully examine like Nemes Basset's remains, but yeah. And yeah, that is Egypt for you, and I'll see you all later for Saudi Arabia and Australia. Might be some time later considering they're both like really long scripts and all that. That's like 9-10 pages long. As yes, I do go into some detail with them. So yeah, I'll see you all later, and yeah, if you want to look up ancient Egypt and all that, just type in ancient Egypt and all that on Google and all, or whatever search in the news, and I'll see you all later. So yeah, bye for now.